I put this out earlier today, and it says, how to encourage marriage by fixing divorce in 5 simple steps. Number one, eliminate alimony. Okay. By the way, none of this is ever going to happen, not in our lifetime. The only way to get these things is to go somewhere where it already exists. There are places in the world that don't hate men, that aren't hostile, where you can go, get married. You call it whatever you want, get married, have a family, whatever it happens to be, and you don't have these risks. But in the West, in most Western places, so you want to fix marriage, you want to encourage guys to sign up for marriage, Daily Wire, and all the guys in that clan or crew. This is how you do it. You fix it by fixing the divorce laws, eliminate alimony. If women are so strong and independent today and don't need no man, and a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, you've all heard the sound bites. We hear it all the time. Women are blah, 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 going on about it all the time on social media. Get rid of alimony. Why do they need it? It shouldn't exist. If you're so strong and independent, stand on your own 2 feet after you get divorced, pay your own shit, and look after yourself. You're a grown ass adult. But no, in many places in the West, you get divorced, you're paying alimony, sometimes not for a fixed period of time. You're paying it for a lifetime. You're paying to support somebody else that you're not married to anymore, you're not being intimate with, you're not enjoying intimacy or sexual benefits from. You're actually paying them money, and some other dude is banging them. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Why do you have to maintain their lifestyle into perpetuity just because they married you? Now, some people, you know, rightly will say something like, well, Rich, like, what would you say to your daughter? Would you tell her not to get married? It's a different conversation if you have a daughter. Totally different conversation. Tell her to get married, of course. Like, why wouldn't you? It's a great freaking deal. If you love your child and she can find a guy that's got his life sorted, why not tell her to get married? There's no downside. It's all upside. It's low risk, high reward for women. It's high risk, low reward for men. So again, the first thing, eliminate alimony. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Second thing, default 50-50 custody. Why are we living in a world where men have to fight for custody? Why? Doesn't make any sense. Most fathers are more than capable, and in fact, the statistics say they're better at it than women at raising children and turning them into productive, useful members of society. I wouldn't argue that women are better at it when the children are smaller. They need the nurturing, they need the mother, they need the breast milk, they need all that stuff. Like, women are better at that phase of life. But to remove a man from his child's life, which women are incentivized to do, because when they do it, they also get child support and control, by the way. Okay. They want to make medical decisions unilaterally without your input. Mandatory DNA testing, or paternity testing, as it's called, because it's nearly impossible to establish the rates of which paternity fraud exists. The word fraud is a part of paternity fraud because it relies on one party being deceptive to the other. Women have with 100% assurance that when they are pregnant and they birth a child, it is theirs. They know it because they carried it and they pushed it through their body. So there's no confusion, which is fine. But men have some uncertainty in that area. It's entirely possible, and it happens, where women get impregnated by somebody else, and then they point to that guy who could be the husband. He may not be the husband at that time, and says, that's the father. You're the father. This is yours. You stand up and man up. Now, going back to the notion that we don't know what the actual rates happen to be, I came across some data. I was doing some research when I was writing my first edition of the book, and it mostly comes from the medical establishment and from school assignments, believe it or not. If you ask women out there if they could honestly take a survey and state whether or not the father or the person that has been playing the role of the dad to their children is a real father, and get an honest answer, you're not going to get it. Because if they say that the guy is not the father, then that exposes them to potential harm, that exposes them to shame. There's a lot of consequences. The consequences are much, much higher for women. So it's understandable as to why they would be deceptive and lie about the paternity of the child, or pretend like, oh, I don't know, or I'm pretty sure it's him. It's got to be him. It's got his eyebrows or whatever. It's been revealed a number of times in medical establishments. So, as an example, without going through all of them, if you've got a sick child that has a disease, they do blood labs on the child. They then do blood labs on the parents to try to establish the genome and potential remedies, or if they need to, I don't know, the kid's got bone cancer or something like that. Is there, or they need a kidney? Is one of the parents a donor? And then the medical establishment then discovers, oh, wait, hold on a second. Yeah, that's the mom, but the DNA has no association to the father. That's not the father. Now, depending on where they live, they don't always disclose it to the father. They'll have a conversation with the mom and say, "Are you sure that he's the dad? Because the blood labs or, the results from the testing say that he's not the father." And, at that time, they're in a private room with the medical professional and her, and they might have a conversation like, "Well, I'm not entirely certain, but maybe he's not. There was another guy around the same time." And then maybe the medical, professional says, "Well, we don't have to disclose it here in this state or province, but just so you know," right? The medical establishment has shown somewhere between 10 to 15% of the time when they're doing these studies, on the blood and the kids and the sickness and all this sort of stuff, the guy that's been acting as a dad is not the dad. School assignments have shown the numbers to be high as well. To say that's across the board, that 25% or 20% of the time there's paternity fraud would be an unfair statement, but it exists. That's the problem. The fact that it exists, the fact that it is a potential to exist, is a problem for men. Men do not want to raise the seed of another man. It's why most single moms are repulsive to guys and they don't want to get involved with them, and they get turned off and will express frustration and this sort of stuff online when they're trying to settle down and find a guy and get right and all that sort of stuff. And they've got kids in tow from a prior type of relationship. So I think that mandatory DNA testing at the hospital when the child's born being done makes marriage and having kids that much more attractive, because it's one of the legitimate grievances that men have expressed today is paternity fraud exists. Cuckoldry exists, and it's at a rate that is unknown, but higher than what most people out there will hold out to the public. It's real. It's a real problem. And the fifth one is issuing child support to what the child actually needs. Again, lots of conversations on this in the past. There's been lots of guys who have stated, look, when I was married, my costs to cover swimming lessons and extracurriculars and after school care and meals and clothing and all this sort of stuff, it's about $1,000 a month, right? And you're a dad, you're happy to pay it. It's your kid, you want to look after them. But when you get divorced and then the government gets involved and they start punching numbers into their tables, this is where shit starts getting interesting. They start basing it on your income, on a percentage of your income, the discrepancy between her income and your income. And it's like child support doesn't get distributed based on what is required for the child to live in that other household. It's based on their tables. And there's lots of dads that have found, well, when I was married, it was costing me about $1,000 a month, to cover all this. But now that they've punched numbers in a table, that number goes up to $3,217.18 a month. And they're like, where's this money going? And it's going to our handbags and shoes, not to the kids, right? So you want to fix marriage, you want to encourage marriage, you're going to fix it by fixing things in divorce. And I didn't write this saying that this is a remedy and this will get adopted and be used to fix things. I wrote it knowing full fucking well that it's never going to happen in my lifetime. I wrote it because these are the things that are required. And all of these things, if you eliminate alimony, if you eliminate default 50-50 custody, if you eliminate the division of assets, if you eliminate mandatory paternity testing, if you eliminate child support for what the child actually needs, women are going to lose their shit. Guys aren't going to change these laws. There's no way guys can get together, men's rights activists, none of these groups getting together to petition, go to Capitol Hill and say anything will ever fix any of these things. It's never, ever going to happen. The charge for these changes needs to come from women. And why would women change these things if it benefits them so greatly? Think about it. Why, if you've got such a strong advantage entering into a marriage contract, why would you change any of the things that benefit you so greatly, that make it so low risk and high reward to get married? Why would you change any of those things? That's why when all of these pink pill chicks online, they're all, Yeah, marriage isn't fair for fathers. And why do you think they're not getting, they butt heads with like the trad cons? It's like, ladies, ladies, if you're serious, if you really give a fuck about men and want them to marry you and you want to have more marriages, you want to fix the problem, get the gals together in the thousands and tens of thousands, even better, hundreds of thousands, and go and march on Capitol Hill, policymakers, bureaucrats, and tell them shit's not fair. Men aren't marrying us. We want to change these things over here that I've just mentioned. It's never going to happen, ever. Never, ever, ever. It's far better and easier for them to create outrage on social media and Twitter to get eyeballs and views and follows and dorks in their comments going, yeah, you go, girly. It's not going to happen ever. Okay. But that's what it takes to remedy it. Are there things that you can do? Can you vet women better? Yeah. Don't deal with women that have red flags. All the stuff that I talk about in my book. I mean, I cover all of it from a bunch of different angles in my book. You do all those things, you got a better chance of having success. But at the end of the day, going somewhere where men aren't hated, where they're treated fairly, where all of these things already exist, which do in many parts of the world, where there's um, uh, cultural and religious values that subscribe to these notions. And people message me all the time like, yo, Rich, Islam's got it sorted out, man. Like the Unplugged Alpha is basically Islam. It's like, cool, if that's what it is, go there. There's remedies to it. I'm not saying don't have kids. I'm not saying don't deal with women. I'm not saying don't date women or any of those things. I'm saying do it if you want, but walk into it with your eyes wide open, because it's a slaughterhouse. There's a lot of sharp objects in there that can hurt you. And most guys get hurt. The vast majority of guys do get hurt pretty badly, and some get destroyed. And there's a very large percentage versus women. I think the number is something like 10 times higher, if not more, that men that self-delete after a divorce. Women aren't self-deleting after a divorce. It's men. It's men that are doing it in much, much larger numbers. But again, like I said earlier, nobody cares about men. Nobody gives a fuck about men. We pretend like we care about men. We pretend like there's men's rights and there's honey badgers and men's rights activists and women pink pill chicks online. They're basically saying the same shit that men have been saying for decades. Like they give a fuck about men. It just doesn't exist. So, to the point of, well, what do? You do what's best for you. You do what you think is right for you. And if you want to test it out, if you want to march in the slaughterhouse, if you want to get into a marriage, if you want to take on a woman that shared her body with 40, 50 guys, 10 guys even, it doesn't matter. Do it. But at least do it knowing what you're getting into. Walk into it enlightened. I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here. And pinned down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.